Guest of our forum, I greet you in our section. Section is a practical decision concerning employment, let's level of integration of IDP. I will also direction of advocacy and social protection of right to protection. And first of all, I would like to represent our speakers who will participate in our section. It's Mrs. Olena Vysotska, first deputy of head of service, the advice of Minister of Social Policy and Family and Unity, Oksana Sulema, and head of political sphere and head of administrative services, Olga Nosova, head of social protection, Anna Turchak is the head of house and employment and advocacy and land plot charity fund of protection, Mikhailo Truba, head of City Council of Yampel City Council, and also we have Alexander Druzyak, head of House and Communal Services of Yampel City Council. And also we have online Maxim Chikrin of Executive Power. Please tell online, do you hear us? Do you see us? Good afternoon. Yes. Yes, thank you very much. And one thing I would like to say, the question of integration, we already touched this panel discussion, and in framework of our session, we would like to open more details, the main components of integration which influence spheres of life, its provision of IDPs for housing, social services, and worker. And in the framework of such panel, we discuss the instrument of support of IDPs which we have in the sphere, and also we will discuss the element of cooperation between this element of integration, what will provide the proper level of life of internally displaced person. And also separately we will stop on program of on youth social model of services, and also about the decision which unites life and employment, a mechanism of realization of decision concerning the life decision on local level. And before we will come to the question of speakers, the question it's a big question and complex question. This project is developed about the capacity of state mechanism to work in synergy and provide all of key spheres of life of IDPs in this sphere. It's depending on state policy, will give them framework, and the community will turn these policies into concrete things. And the integration is more local mechanism, but it's depending on both practical local practices, and we'll talk about just you can provide persons the consequent road of support. In this context, we have the relation between life and the social services and employment of IDPs. As housing program create the basement of sustainability and also support of families who have difficult condition and possibility to employment. They open the way to economic independence of IDPs, and if such sphere come hand in hand, person will have not the kit of separate decision, but the whole system which really works and have a direct influence on life. And we have such results. We made the survey concerning the needs of IDPs in integration, and for such results that we have now, the base scenes for 75 respondents, the key factor is the house and social support. It's very important for 59%, and the possibility to employment was 38%. The things that we have due to the result of the survey on the early stage, it's provided the humanitarian needs for IDPs, and but with the time, this need will change for the request for more sustainable decision, and it's about social services and employment, and this confirms such stages of integration. The policies must be enacted on all layers. Dear speakers, before we will start representing and discussing this main component, we would like to pay your attention to such blitz question. There's two questions or respond. What kind of complex decision demonstrates the decision from IDP, and what kind of direction should you develop to facilitate this process? Mrs. Elena? I'm not so experienced expert in such sphere, and Ministry of Social Policy is a new player because to some period Ministry of Social Policy told about the policy of IDP only in part of social services, and now we are responsible for service in general, and this responsibility will have the additional critical missing in, and I will use it. I didn't see any complex decision which would be effective, but we will continue the discussion. Not everything should be such effective. We have analyzed many things which have already been done, but we should treat it with criticism, because the statistic of using one another instrument is very low, depending such forecasts that we have. So still my answer is like following. Thank you for being honest and underline the necessity, the condition assessment of such mechanisms that already exist for them to be more efficient. Mrs. Oksana, and you will be the next one. In the things that you told, it's very important to have house, and if you will remember the Maslow pyramid, so house and water, it's basic needs which should fulfill, and then we can tell about other needs, about such integration. And such complex things, it's very important, and if it looks like such things that to integrate person without active participation of the person, it's unreal. So the person must be really, and from my opinion, it's very important to continue the social services development. It's not material things, it's influence for conscious of persons, the help in the process of integration. Thank you very much for underlining such human-centric in the approach of integration of IDP, Mrs. Olga. And continuing things that Oksana has told, and us will talk about this, and about the process of adaptation is an essential part of this complex help. It's very important the development for services as the complex assessment. We have such services, and we will have person to help a person to be able to be independent. It will be helpful for the person, and in the context of adaptation have such intermediate but very important on the way of integration, Mrs. Anna, and take into account that the fact that I will talk about such but probably it's a complex decision with the Ministry of Social Policy, and it's such a complex decision where we can help person with the help of studying, providing the housing, looking for the search in the place of employment. We will do everything, okay? We will communicate, all right, we will explain. Is the decision, it's a shelter and work, it can be a complex decision for our state. It's very important. It's the first scale, complex and digitalized decision, which could provide this integration. Mrs. Anastasia, thank you. I would like to support Mrs. Anna concerning the shelter work and probably possibility, and would like to emphasize there must be some other documents which from other side will support IDPs. For example, in help we had some decisionless introduction subsidiary for a rent apartment, and the same instrument must be working very effective, and the reformating sphere of housing and rent apartment, and it must be descheduled, because to me this very important document. The reformation must be more global, and the same thing I would like to underline that must be different instruments to, for example, to implement such housing certificate in order to with credit, for example. We should direct some incorporation of different decisions and to look for such point, and to see how you can reform general situation to make this decision active. Thank you for the necessity for such cooperation and complex understanding of such a process. And then, Mr. Maxim, do you hear us? Concerning such question, I would like to play words. The complex decision, but the complex of decision. And take into account such complex decisions that we could come with all social category between IDPs, the question of employment, living, and so on. It's very difficult to imagine one decision which could solve all of this question. Even we have some people who found better work, someone need more support. still people are not protected. So I would like have such comments, this kind of policy, complex policy concerning the approach of to solve all of this problem of IDPs. Thank you very much for your response. Thank you for underlying such diversity of categories which are necessary to take into account in complex decision making. And Mr. Mikhailo and Mr. Alexander. Good afternoon, dear organizers and participants of forum. We say thank you for invitation to take part in this forum, which is dedicated to some very important question concerning the provision of visa housing for IDPs. And you know that that is one of the most important question of modern Ukraine, the complex integration of IDPs, because during last years we have overcome the great challenges, and today our common is to provide people who have to leave their homes and find the proper place to live in and feel themselves safe. A stable life, housing, it's a first step to recover normal life. Providing house for people is not only repair, it's a creation of condition where people can feel themselves home and not staying in their own houses. So the community has a positive example, because starting from year 2014, when Russian Federation has first introduced Ukraine, we have felt the responsibility of from the new territories from territories of conflict. So that is why in year 2015 we have started to work in this topic, and for the sake of common project and with the sake of IDP, in framework of this project of local development, we had the project about part of a hotel use for a temporary or constant place for living of IDPs. The cost of such project is 1.4 million hryvnias, where 1 million it's a cost for donors cost, and 300 it's a cost for local budget. And for today we have 41 people who live in this place, and majority of people live here since year 2022, first days of war. As they came back, and we have created all of the condition, not only provide them with housing, but also to find the place of work for them and provide them with all condition for living in our community. With the help of human needs to have the reconstruction for such of housing for IDPs. The general cost of project it's more than 2 million. Year 2025, we have cooperated with a charity fund, Smile UA. We have provided the current repair of housing where internally displaced people and repaired the to the amount of 730,000 hryvnias, and also new furniture and equipment, household equipment, for the amount maximum 1 million to provide the living of IDPs. When we had the reconstruction, we take into account as for the IDPs who has this disability, and took into account the necessary situation of the people who has special needs. We have created the toilets with limited with disabilities, and we work with a charity organization where we have cooperation for the second part of repair. We have 2 and 4 million hryvnias when we can provide the shelter for people who have place of living. Mr. Mikhaila, sorry for interrupting you. 2 minutes. It was a blitz question, and we'll have additional speech for you. So, thank you very much for your sharing this experience. And I provide to come to a new instrument of social support for NDPs from state in the sphere of house. And Mrs. Elena, the question is to you for today. We have underlined that today the settlement of housing question is a main condition for integration of IDPs. At the same time, quantity of IDPs don't have any possibilities or resource to provide themselves or the family with a dignified living. For such persons, the social support from the state. And for example, the support in the program of accessible credit in EOSELA and here. Tell us more about such program, about initiative, about the practice of initiative, because it's one of the key. Well, thank you. Thank you for the very concrete question, and I would like to start from the general thesis that housing for people who had to transfer, it's a new house and it's a key need, and everyone understand it. Actually, that housing for ordinary people is also the key need. We have started about this in the context of IDP, but actually the need of housing and our cultural understanding of ownership of house, and we want to own this house. We have been taught during Soviet time, we have a big stage of reformating of such ownership, privatization, and we evaluate this, and we appreciate this, and we need this. The world is very diversified, and if you talk about the practices, we can see that in principle we have some instruments, lease of house, and it simplifies. We would say, yeah, it can more freedom to transfer. When you're looking for a job, they look for a job, and we look for the job nearby our house. And in Europe and America, we know that people go to some period, they look for a job and waiting for better contract practices. Let's take that and vice versa, the house, and it's very expensive property. Maybe the most expensive property that the state can give in some kind of compensation and such of support and something like this. People talk about some institution of service housing that you cannot compare. It's you cannot compare the 13 salary or some kind of salary. If you will have the housing as a property, it's a jackpot. And let's not forget about such aspect. It's very expensive, and state is not able. And we should admit, state is not able to provide even for those families, even for those categories who take upon themselves in the period even before the war started. You should be very concrete and very honest to talk about this. It's also very important, and we will come to this. I would like to emphasize that there are plenty of instruments, and not only these ones, but also other ones in Ministry of Development. In the forum, we will have the big panel discussion with the discussion, and in order to repeat, we will not go to detail to all of these details. And Ministry of Social Policy also have analyzed everything. Have such critical things to watch and critical this instrument, and it's not so, everything is not so good. Not with such projects which exist on municipal level, not such a project where it's financed by bank or big corporation or such big funds. We have plenty things to do if you talk about life, talk about the terminology of social living or something like this. I cannot, I learned everything because we work with all of this now, but I understand there are plenty of other things in other categories, and I would like to also to say how the government works with a pilot project. What is an instrument like this? The pilot projects will be implementing things that the mechanism will have, and we will understand that we need to have some changes in legislation, and the only thing that we can understand, that we cannot avoid going to the parliament to the amendment, it's a pilot project. Here, the expert community, and we also must talk about this because it's also the instrument, and it's very changeable. You cannot say about when you're talking about the classic legislation, but we have it's short term. The project cannot live more than 3 years. It's connected with the war condition, but as a lawyer about such instrument is different. We have been tested all of the decision, and in parallel with both with the parliament, we the changes, and approximately optimistic has the changes in year time, and we are realistic, and we understand that it's 2 and more year. And the pilots show us analytics. You should do it. It's but if you criticize, you must offer something. You talk about the project, it's our project, our budget, and we can come to the to detail. It was very good. It's a compensate the price of lease, but something went wrong because we have not such a thousand of families which have enclosed such agreement, and we, together with our partners, we have been given the survey analytic service, because ministry not always have resource, time, and motivation to provide such survey, especially when you criticize it. And thank you to our partners. We have the report with the mistakes that we have. If we talk about the least middle price, it's like a shadow market of without a clear decision how you can make some changes, how to give some not to be afraid of such project, but being understanding about our mentality and understanding the category who has a free housing. I don't think we will be quick quantity of one to have this list and give the compensation, but we have such question, have done this question, and maybe it will be something revolutionary and something more, but still we didn't agree on political level, and we have some criticism. We have the encouraging to change some other acts to regulate it. It's absolutely normal, and at such platform, it's very cool to say about defects. And not about our victories. And some other victories that we have, it's the crediting of compensation of first input and other payment, and also we have more cooperation with the banks, and we have, but for today, statistic we have a little bit late statistic. I have statistic as of about October. I have within the certifies in notes, explanation notes, we have such credit receivers, and really 20, maybe something more. It's not the result that we actually planned. We had, we don't have the response now how to solve this problem, because housing, it's very expensive, and people who suffered, they want to have in property, and state cannot give the property credit, and it's like in the property, but IDP is not the first time IDP, and it's very unjust, but we still must find the model where we can use this resource, this restricted resource, but it exists. And in effect, Ministry of Social Policy will spread it, and our task is main principle is justice to spread it, and the efficiency, it will be the next component to have this more components of lease agreement and other, but once again, that we have some complex decision. It's only platform how to design it. Miss Lena, thank you for raising this question and raising of this spectrum and this condition of martial law. It's very important both for mechanism for IDPs, and thank you for realistic view for IDPs, and for such things that for you have underlined this gap that we have, and we should decide that legislation. And then I provide you to come from the well into social services and talk about innovation for IDPs. And Mrs. Oksana, we all know that Ministry of Social Policy has realized this problem and new approaches for social services. It's social services that money follows people. It's also the medical nurse principle. It's the services concerning living of IDP together with support of IDPs. And this is a decision which are oriented on needs of IDPs from a point of view of elderly people and such experimental people provide the logic of cooperation. And this context I would like to define, if you support IDP, the separate attention for vulnerable categories, people with low mobility, people and elderly people from IDPs, and what, in your opinion, here must be the key orientation for long-term decision in a sphere of such categories of people? Thank you for the question. Probably I will start from social services. I have been talking about this. It's non-material support, it's not financial support, and it's not subsidiary. It's about the support of professional. It's a separate kind of support. It's not only about internally displaced people. It's about the vulnerability. And you should have professional nearby who will help to understand the situation, get clear the situation, will help to plan other actions, how to overcome the situation, to come out of the situation, to improve the condition. And must be some person who will be who will help the person to get into some to development such and help person to help a person and independent and feel dignity, because we can help a different material way of support, but people will not be able how to use it, where to go for employment and how to plan our specialist work with our people who are disoriented and apathic, and they need to be stimulated for person to willing to life, how it sounded, maybe professional activity. We have the we have 40 different services, and they will be given depending on different questions. They're not connected with the status. So a social service, it's not about the legal status of people. Even if we are talking about IDP, the person can have some condition, but health condition, some turn, social connection, can have cases even of domestic violence, or this person can need different involvement and different questions, and social services will be given for the sake of different for finance, and first of all of local budget. It's also the state support, and I will start a little bit more. And its participation of charity fund, international fund, the subject who provide the social services are actually very, very different. And the thing that we actually have such subject with claimed that they provide the social services. There are more than 400 of them. They not all everyone work with the IDPs, but they all work with all people who need for support. And unfortunately, we have the decrease of people who provide. I talk about the common sector. They referral to us. We don't see everything. We have the same. And if we will analyze those quantity of people who have got such one or another support, you have to analyze more than other. We have load, very big load for us. It's one of the challenges that you should need to solve. Another challenge is that due to the full invasion, needs have been changed. If you are talking about social services, if psychosocial talk about the emergency response, as care people respond, they can stay home without close people. And they need to have such, like it's a temporary decision to place a person who have lost the house. And here we have look through the services. We talk about the improvement. It's better to keep psychosocial support, or we move another direction. It's a person with the disability. It's also the challenge, and we should think how that all safe must be without barriers, and the person must feel how to feel, how maybe someone will help and the person will ask for the support. If we talk about internally displaced person, the services will be given different. And I will say thank you for the territorial community, for them for giving their own formats, giving such for such services. And previous year, we have plenty of people. Thank you for the organization who have been involved to our projects. They cope with all of the conditions which we prescribe for all of the experimental. And they solve the question concerning the providing support. And if we talk not only about the services, not only for such people, through the network, it was served more than 10,000 of people. It was more consultative psychosocial support, and it's how work with internally displaced person on the level of community, but all of the changes, challenges in lack of people, lack of resources in the communities. This ministry has started to work over this. Elena has said why we started to launch the experimental project. From one part, we work about formation of new services that we didn't have. You should modulate and understand how efficient they must be, how they must. On this first panel, we remembered about resilient, and due to the result of this project, we try to talk about such service and to take into account the mechanism and the organization of the financing of these services. That is why modulating the new services for IDPs. Here, the support of communities, the improvement of such services that we have, and the ability to work of some kind of model, come to sustainable decision. The things that we seen today for transit point need the social worker who need to work with people. To understand to get involved in this process, to decide this material project, to understand where you can transmit. You must have such doctor. You should, as possible, long-term medical nurse support. It will be the stabilization of the person. And this idea we have after we have tried to work with internally displaced person on our sanitary institution. We were talking, and now we also talk about the shelter service, stationary and social adaptation. But in sanitary institution, we used to have medical staff who help stabilize. And people were ready even to go for a job, even if take into account that people were with disabilities and old people. And also have active people who, so it's long-term decision. The person can come here. We have more than 200 of institution of healthcare, and we have not more than 40 people, but in principle, step by step, it works. And the thing I would like to pay attention, it's not a quick decision. It's a question, but we cannot see the result. And when the person needs to change the style of behavior, must have 1 year, 1 whole year. You need to have a new decision. And unfortunately here it's different. And after medical nurse service, and it's very important that on this stage and the medical nurse services, and you need to have social service, and you need to use this on transit. Social service will provide this work on medical nurse and give the person to the social services for training, and then when the person will be stabilized, when the understanding is different, and the treatment to the life to work it out once again. And of course today in our shelter I have 23 persons who are contracted, and after shelter we need to have the sustainable decision for the person. It's very important to such questions. Elena have told the house and person must come there. It's very important because it's take care session. It's also sustainable decision, because not all people can come out of difficult decision, and you will need such support during all life. And know this, and the support of life. It's also a sustainable decision. It can be a sustainable decision. Now we have hundreds of persons who have such people, and life on their own. We have some cases when after active work with people in old age. People found their lives, they started to work. It's the same thing about the people with disability. And here it's very important the role of social workers. You need to learn people, to teach people how to work with people. And because they work with the question, no matter it's in IDP or people with children or family with children, you need to work very complex way. And maybe you need to help people to find work. Maybe you need to provide social support for the person, and we will call it plan of work. But it's not plan, not for the social plan. It's for people, because without the involvement of person, it will be very difficult to move something from the place. So it's both for new service providing, for both the modeling of the whole model of support of complex to IDP, and of course it's not always for people to come. All of the stage can come from the transit on their own with close people. I'm not always used to follow all of this way, but the stage can be done if it's really needed for the people. And financial mechanism and social services, it's for authorities of municipalities and community. And our experimental work, it's a new financial mechanisms, social services, and the changes were made into the law, and now we work over the normative acts. And we got to the from experiments to constant decision, and must be the service of social adaptation. We will relate it and we will walk it through on our basic of our colleague will tell it more detail, but without the service it's very difficult to integrate someone, because okay, you gave the shelter, it's a shelter, eat, you have something to eat, and that's all. But this mechanism for adaptation, you should need to have it, because without this mechanism, it's very difficult to tell about such adaptations about the person. Person must want it. Mrs. Oksana, thank you. First of all, thank you for mentioning the necessity of multidisciplinary approach for social services. It's a critically important question, which is really was over the social services, but it realized about such things. The key, all of the services will be provided. And if I did understand you correct way, in the context of such things, that model has had to enter to the sustainable decision must be complex of social services, and one experimental project must fill another and act in such a system. You are correct to understand it's a system of support of person to the integration. It's very important for person to get involved into all of this project, so we can work, we can for one stage to the last one, but we should have this. Mrs. Oksana have already told about social adaptation service, and I would like to underline for everyone that for protection pilots, the Centurion Slava and now social service of adaptation don't have the legislative expression because it will be worked out, and it's very important to have work which will made by the services, and the service it's come to clear that the service must be what kind of it be the necessary competence of the services and what kind of results must be gained. And I would like to ask the question. The adaptation is being shown that between crisis and regression is a fundamental stage which call for a clear model. And what things should you take into account due to the project in such service? And as for the service must reflect not theoretic aspects, but real needs of IDPs. Thank you. Thank you, Helena. Thank you, Oksana. I have heard everything you talked, and that it's very good that we're doing it. Let us move correct way. I will tell a little bit more about service, and then we realize in Margaret Slava, and due to the provision in 55, 31 March, year 2024, as a new year present, and Batkivshina, I will tell about Slava. Sanatory that we are realizing such project. Why it has occurred? Because we had such a necessity towards the social support of IDP, and here we must say about the old people, like vulnerable category and people with disabilities. This provision will join such main services, which supportive living, when Centurion gives temporary place, and social adaptation. We have, and we see that plenty of dwellers of sanatorium don't need to have such medical support. They need, they can live on their own, that support living, and correspondingly, we don't have such a target to have some institution for providing of such services. We come with needs assessment, and not we must we don't have such aim to work independently. We want to work this together with a specialist and somewhere to change this experience. And we made the needs assessment of all of these people who live in this centurion to assess the resource of people for living on their own. And unfortunately here we have seen that people were not ready to be honest with us. Unfortunately, it's not enough some people to help us. Yeah, I don't have children, and then they have a son who is able to buy this say some situation about some love. We are humanitarian organization. We are not to check everything. And we are not always aware about the pension payment and so on. But maybe the main thing was that we have in sanatoriums life, we have a term of staying, and due to our work in a half of a year, when people opened it and people understood that we have to help them and they can get adopted, and we have the waves of quantity indication of trust, and saying thank you for our website and our website. And after assess of needs, we have made individual plans and such assessment. We also pilot them, and we give the recommendation in some kind of things. Besides, we actively launched the individual services as social, legal, and psychological. There are a lot of about the certificates and so on. I think it I think that taking such concept buying of the purchasing of the psychologist, and we didn't have such resources. We involved partners, and we had such nice cooperation, and in my opinion we were able to develop the network with Proliska, and we used a lot of partners and employment center systematically come to people who in center make some lectures about the possibility of vouchers receiving. And we have, unfortunately, one experience of such thing. That person, the person have training of cook assistants, and they have possibility to pay for lease agreement and living on their own. And we have launched that we have the territorial, but it was partner works and different case management and transporting, and have some events. Beside our individual work with beneficiaries, we have the plan of systematic of group measurement for such work, and we it's very simplifies the possibility of our beneficiary to get in touch with their relatives and go abroad, and who could learn how to make some request, to have some different kinds of help. We also have such events concerning the psychological condition. We have thematic of how to find friends after 60-year-old, how to care about yourself, how about healthy way lifestyle, about body, about communication with people. And it's one of some you have some about the who saying the cooking masterclass, and but think that was very interesting. We think that we make such 2 months masterclass, and we have such that I have not baked anything for 3 years, and beneficiary has poetry. There's a lot of the very creative people, and we have beneficiary with empathy who couldn't even imagine that he will be able to cook something, and we have helped him. We have people after stroke who told that they didn't do anything for these 2 years, and because they live there, they have staff, they have people, they have nothing to do. But it seems to me that we made some hope that the person is able to do it, not taking into account who can do everything on him or her own. So due to such complex of, it's like individual consultants, due to development of partner network, and the same we have direction some for rising of capacities of expert of the specialist of Slava Sanatorium for today. We have a year of realization of such project. We have 32 beneficiaries who are active in adaptation. It's 130 beneficiaries who have found the decision without us for the transmission adaptation. It's talking for me that due to this complex, people have seen possibility for themselves due to the help of our lawyers. And we have people who have the certificate of transmitted efficiently. And we see that a lot of decision and compared to beneficiaries which we supported in adaptation. And through these cases, successfully we have cases both in abroad and within Ukraine. We connect with all relatives and we check the readiness to meet them. We find the partners to transfer the people. And now we also have the stories of cases when people were ready to pay lease agreement in the rural premises, and we have involved in parallel the organization which made the repair. And if they have the needs on inclusivity, this thing, and we the partners to maximally for this live in this and take into account that this was lease agreement with the Hauna. It's very important. Don't leave the person alone. We all must understand that the moment of reaching some living with me that we made the social adaptations. Adaptation it's even started more global after the person is moved off from this place, and we both need the partners, and we have pretty big range. People travel all over Ukraine. It's very important to have such post support. Thank you, Mrs. Ola. You have unbelievable support approach for such support, and due to the account of our, you have underlined all of the spheres which people must be integrated, and you provide all of them. And I think that such social adaptation has the age of the adaptation, and I provide to offer to come to interconnection between the connection of housing and the involvement. The vision is a more separate decision, and all of every of this decision has some task to solve, and the project of shows that the support will be effective even have two instruments which are connected. They not compete, but emphasize each other. And here we have such approach for key integration. And such theory for internally displaced person, how and where he or she wants to move. And here we have the question about the shelter and work. It transforms the role of employer, and he becomes the element of social infrastructure of internally displaced person. How you can see this role of the employer in state policy and normative scaling, for how you see it as a basic one for integration and implement it into the legislation. Thank you. Business becomes a social partner now, and first of all I would like to say thank you for my partners. I have heard plenty of interesting things for me and my colleagues. I would like to show my presentation, and first of all I will start from the scene that the shelter and work. It's a project that we have already presented. This question was the February. The initiator of this project was Galina Yanchenko, the deputy of Ukraine, who has accumulated all of the results and has created the big platform shelter, where people who had housing and were looking for the housing have found each other at this platform who provided the house. And what for today we understand is that the availability of housing is not enough. We should make this initiative bigger. And for today, we have priority not only the housing, but also the integration. Integration with the help of training, integration with the help of looking for the work, and also looking for the job and the business. If we would like to get in more detail about the influence which will join the social effect. Social effect is the sense that we understand that plenty of people had to have work, economic, it's both for business and state and family. When family have to live in comfort work and have dignified work or payment of work. The thing that we have in the system, it's a cabinet of employer, the one who looks for the job, and internally quality in the side of a platform. And for today, we already see the active work of business and active business support, and we have socially responsible by business. It will publicize these vacancies, and for today, how it will work. The person who has desire to find the job, the person can be can create the CV and publicize, and also for the employer will present it or represent such vacancies like it has with the help of artificial intelligence. It can be one for the one who looks for this house. And also it's very important that my colleague has told about such we communicate now, we understand how possibility how to work with the social people when internally displaced person come to the transit way, and it has get the how to move on to gain the possibility about the available how we work. It is very important. Thank you for such presentation. I have such a question: how you estimate into the count that it come recently? How you evaluate this will join work and life? Is it enough to have such vacancies, and how can we use it in such a nearest future? Nearest perspective. I will say more than 1,000 vacancies we have on the platform, and every day we renew these vacancies. We have such a right triangle which includes business and internally displaced people. It's such a triangle that we work very actively. We have a quantity of business who give work and life. It's such a business that we work, that main focus. Thank you for the answering, and thank you for underlining of such innovation and acute necessity. This is for IDPs, possibility IDPs and go both for family to the same place, and understand that this reintegration will be more soft. Thank you very much. And then I would like to come to the local decision and communities for internally displaced person. And here we come to the local practice. Maybe we will come to this mechanism we can form on their own. They can fill this program and form such support for.
One of the areas of this work at the local level is the increase of housing, and one of the sources for the extending of the housing available is heritage, and also property without owners. Quite often, these resources were outside of community's attention, not taken into account in establishing solutions, and very importantly, the experience of communities shows how it is possible to use these resources. And in this regard, let us listen to Maxim's experience. What are the possible results and what are the things are the communities need to take into account? Thank you so much for the opportunity to present on this issue. Our Ladesian community is rather small. We had 21,000 of our own population, 2.4 thousand of the officially registered IDPs. Hence, the problem with search of housing, which we started facing in 2023. We had some healthcare professionals evacuating to our place, and we appreciated this a lot because healthcare in our community was not well developed prior to the full-scale invasion. And here we found a window of opportunity to grow our healthcare. We currently have about 10% employees working in health. We launched surgery, 90% of IDPs. We opened the traumatology unit as part of surgery, 100% of IDPs. We thus were able to increase the income for the regional, to the local hospital from 42 million hryvnias to 72 million hryvnias. So it is almost a twofold increase. Hence, we faced the problem. Where do we find housing, at least for those who work for the healthcare facilities? We considered the option of working with heritage. We focused on the possibility of quickly identifying the persons who died, and we have a system put in place for this. We already have 10 apartments which became public property. We are currently working on 15 standalone houses. We are repairing the apartments. We are not making these apartments part of the social housing. No, this is housing for the IDPs working for first and foremost health. We provided in summer apartment for the head of the therapy unit. We spent about 700,000 hryvnias to repair the apartments. Also, we then provided an apartment to a surgeon, IDP surgeon from Tokmak. We spent about 800,000 to repair the apartment, and we promise these people that if they work in our community for 10 years, they will be able to privatize this property. Currently, we are launching renovations in one more apartment, and we already have a waiting list. it doesn't that much matter when the person arrived in our community. We are instead focusing on the importance of the specific specialization. So the third apartment will go to the otolaryngologist, which is also the first pediatric otolaryngologist in our community. So we are planning to enhance this experience, and we surely understand that extinct inheritance is not the only solution we need, and it can take over half a year to process all the paperwork. We also had to launch one more local one more local program, according to which we are providing co-financing for those who are renting out apartments and those who work in the enterprises managed by Ladyshin City Council. So first and foremost, this has to do with social and educational areas. Of course, once again, this is not realistic to provide housing to every IDP this way, but step by step we are creating these conditions. We are helping these people relieve the financial load, and actually before the full-scale invasion you could rent out for 3,000 hryvnias, but right now it can be 10 or even 20,000, so it's almost as expensive as in Vinnytsia, the regional center. But we are doing our best to keep people in our community. Over time, it will be possible for the person to prioritize their apartment. And yeah, so these are some real steps we have taken. And in case any other participants of your event need practical advice on how to implement this, we are ready to share this experience, and we are ready to provide advice to representatives of other communities, to share template documents, etc. We believe that the mechanism for rent reimbursement, it's very easy to implement. Currently, we have 10 persons participating in the program. Since next year, we are planning to expand. We are planning to have more funds in the local budget. So we can see very clearly this in the field of health, in the field of education and social sector. It's more difficult to assess the benefit that the person is given to the community. But in the field of health, it's immediately obvious. New specialists enable getting more money. And so, yeah, then we are able to assess how many people should be eligible for such privileges. And here in this case, for instance, we can see that we have invested 800,000 hryvnias into a person, but they have earned like almost 3 million hryvnias over these 2 years. So that's very clear math, and yeah, that's the experience that can also be scaled up to other communities. So we are the general purpose hospital, but we are also able to become more ambitious. We are informing the Ministry of Health of our intention to become a cluster hospital. We fully meet the requirements. We have the necessary equipment, and we believe that in the next 3-year review, our effort will be taken into account. And also, in our case, in the majority of cases, these were the IDPs that were instrumental in this change. Okay, so I'm grateful for this wonderful, useful experience you are sharing, but in case you're asking a question, for some reason I don't hear it. Do you hear me now? Yes, yes, I finally hear you. Okay, thank you, Maxim, for the valuable experience that you have presented, even in these conditions of limited resources. You are able to help IDPs, you are able to implement solutions ensuring better and easier access to housing solutions for IDPs. And in this regard, I would like to transition to the question I will ask Mikhailo. We understand that sometimes communities are limited in the scope of their own resources, and in such situations, government mechanisms of financial support become crucial. One of them is the new subvention that has been recently implemented by the government to establish the temporary housing options. And thus, let us ask Maxim a couple of questions. How exactly is your community using these opportunities, and what would be your advice to other communities using this mechanism? Thank you. Our territorial community is also in Vinnytska Oblast, but we are close to the border with Moldova. We had 3.2 thousand IDPs registered, 1.7 thousand actually live in Yampel. And yes, indeed, for the full provision of IDPs with housing for a couple of years, we worked with donors and charities to establish additional housing options. But today, let me also briefly mention the government funds that we were able to get. I mean here the government subvention. And this year we took part in this program and we are working in this field. We selected a building that was not in use. We have developed the necessary design documents. We submitted them to a number of programs, and currently we are working with the national government. And here we were able to finance the design documents. The project envisions 11 apartments for the stay of IDPs. Also, the building will be equipped with showers and kitchens. As we ordered with these design documents 4 years ago, the total amount of money required then was 3.6 million hryvnias. Back then, we did not have the funds, and unfortunately, we could not implement the project back then. However, in September 2025, the government approved the decree on housing subvention, whereby we could finance building housing for the temporary stay of internally displaced persons. And the only requirement was that we had to provide 40% of financing on our part. So we prepared the necessary papers for participation. We updated the costing, and in just a matter of days, we updated the costing with support of the experts. And now the documentation is updated based on the current pricing. We also have included the requirements on the barrier-free environment. We currently have a lift that would take wheelchair users to the second floor. And so we updated the documentation, and the City Council supported the decision for the co-financing, and we submitted the documents for the subvention, and our community was among the winners. So we got the government support for the capital repairs of the building in the village of Busha of our community. We are hoping to implement it and thus providing additional housing options for the IDPs. And this way, we are going to have more housing available to IDPs. We also, of course, work with property without owners, and yeah, that's another big area. Thank you for sharing this experience. Thank you for the implementation and participation in such programs intended to provide available housing. Your experience clearly demonstrates that no program can work without proper financing and proper implementation. Very importantly, we need to understand what opportunities and priorities are set by the government for the current and upcoming year. My next question goes to Anastasia. What are the IDP opportunities are going to be open for 2026? Are these actually the opportunities contributing to integration? Thank you so much for your question. Indeed, these solutions that were discussed today depend on the financial resources. So each year we have to assess whether the budget is going to give such opportunity, where there are going to be some gaps, which solutions will keep on being available, and which are going to be discontinued by the government. So, of course, it's best to discuss budgets with numbers. Right now, the Cabinet of Ministers has developed the draft budget. It has been through the first reading. Now it's awaiting the second reading and final approval. And the numbers are already known. And also we have got already recommendation on it. So we can see that in the same way as in the previous years, there are budget deficits. Ukraine is still dependent on the international support, and in case we lose international support, our numbers will go down and the government will not be able to finance its projects and programs. And Here's the next thing I suggest you to consider. This is the minimum pay, and we can see that there is only a slight increase, and actually when getting ready for the second reading, these numbers were increased somewhat, and when analyzing these numbers, of course, we understand that 3,000 hryvnias for a grown-up person, it's nothing really. And we understand that based on statistical data, this should have been 8,000 hryvnias. So we understand that the amounts are not sufficient. And we also see that the minimum pay is only increasing slightly. Right now it's only 8,000 hryvnias. It is proposed to increase it to 8,147. So there is some increase, but it is barely a minimum. So compared with the inflation rate, unfortunately, we should state that the increase is insufficient. At the same time, there are the budget programs intended to address the housing and other needs of IDPs. The time is limited, so let us focus on things we can see. So we have compared the numbers we saw in government budget for 2025 with what is intended for the year 2026, and in some cases, like the case of this program, the compensation for destroyed housing, we can see some increase. However, if we analyze this, and if we see that throughout the year the government was reassigning some amounts to other programs, we can see that in practice the total amount spent on some program can be much higher than what's intended. So, for instance, for the year 2025, the total amount for the home project was 460 million. Currently, the total amount to be spent is 4.6 billion hryvnias, which is way more. And also, if we compare the amounts intended for the next year with the actual spending of this year, we understand that there actually will be considerable reduction in the financing. There is almost 50% decrease if we compare the amount budgeted for the next year with the amount spent this year. And also, we are getting this data from the Open Budget portal. You can get the data from there as well. There are other programs that were implemented throughout the year. For the current program, the possibility of using the funds is still there because, well, the passport has been updated and the money has been allocated as it was not used in other government programs. This area is surely important and is becoming increasingly important. The budget is envisioning compensations for some kinds of real estate that was destroyed. In this situation, the story is the same as usual. There is the amount budgeted for the current year. There is a slightly bigger amount budgeted for the next year. But if we take into account all the adjustments in the allocations, you understand that the plan for the year 2026 is much more modest compared to what was actually spent in the current year. And there is a similar situation concerning one more program, compensation for the destroyed housing. For the current year, the plan was 3 billion hryvnias. For the next year, the same amount. It looks like the financing is going to stay the same, and the money is already budgeted for. Now, when we see the updated annual plan, we find a totally different amount, over 8 billion, the 100% of each has been used. So this raises the issue on whether we will have sufficient funds for the next year. And the same trend can be seen in a number of programs. It's the same trend, and this is why, unfortunately, we see the need of additional financing in a number of programs, which will most probably entail additional steps to be taken by the government in the form of requesting donor financing to cover for this need. Because if we can see that this year some serious changes were required in terms of increasing the budget, the same will be taking place next year. If we consider some more programs, not only compensations, we could consider some other fields. For instance, subventions from the government budget. The kind of subventions that were presented by Mikhailo. Currently, in the current year, the intended amount was 1 billion. Actually, we saw the final updated number in summer and early fall, and gradually the numbers were going up. Currently, the subvention is available for reconstruction, renovation, construction of premises such as temporary housing in the communities. But we also see that there was some change introduced to the name of this subvention, and currently the name is financing for the development of housing for temporary stay and supporting living conditions and housing in the rural areas. So, as the name has changed, most probably the regulations will be updated, such as the relevant decree of the Cabinet of Ministers, thus the possible use of these funds can be redefined. One other important aspect is the social support of citizens. We understand that there will be a program combining funds for a couple of very important purposes. The name is a social protection of people in difficult life conditions. Compared to the current year, we are going to see a bigger amount, and we can see a bigger amount envisioned for food. 39 billion hryvnias, the provision of the mortgage support as prescribed for the ESL program, there is the amount of 4.4 billion hryvnias. Here we also include the payments to persons with disabilities, low-income families, and the payments for the temporary placement of IDPs. Also, we need to pay attention to the fact that the government budget provides for some discounted loans for the internally displaced persons, which is yet another big potential area. They could buy the housing they need, and they could start using the housing on a permanent basis. So there is this program that is quite popular, the program for discounted mortgage, and for a long time it was financed through KfW. It was indeed very popular. Many people were included in the register. From time to time, some selections are happening, and according to Держмолодежь law, we were able to support over 1,000 families in buying their housing. Also, 2.3 billion hryvnias was received. And this will enable 100 families to buy new housing. So, if we consider what's been envisioned in this program and the budget for the next year, we can see the amount going down in comparison with the current year. It's going to be just 128 million, and actually this amount should be financed by means of paying off of the previous loans. So the new loans are now strongly dependent on the behavior of those who received the previous loans. If we experience any delays, there will be practically impossibility to provide new loans. So the government, we believe, needs to take measures in the form of engaging international financing to support this very important program. Also, there are some loan programs available. The program for individual homeowners in the rural areas, we have more or less the same amount envisioned for the next year. However, this amount is contingent on the behavior of the previously served people. Also, there will be some discounts for those who was part of the defense forces in the anti-terrorist operation, but the amount for these purposes is the same as for the previous year. And we can also see that only about 50% of funds actually become available. There are also other programs available for people who are currently residing in dormitories or who have insufficient number of square meters to live in dignified conditions. They can benefit from this program. However, what we can actually observe is quite serious limitation of these funds. So here we had 9.2 3.8 million. For the next year, we are seeing only 3.3 million hryvnias. And we also understand that only 42% of the money was used this year. Actually, many more people could benefit from it. So there are lots of recovery programs and subventions that are available to the IDPs and communities in different fields of life, but the issue of using funds is still in many cases problematic. It requires some active participation of the government, and we also need the Court of the Auditors to confirm that there are necessary procedures approved by the government for the use of these funds, because if the procedures become only available by the end of the year, quite a big share of the funds is still the money unused. So hopefully the final version of the budget will be ready soon, and the protection of IDPs, vulnerable populations, and society at large will be sufficiently financed, and we will be watching these amounts change in the upcoming years. Thank you so much, Anastasia, for underscoring these key elements of the government budget and the barriers and challenges that can be faced next year. Thank you so much, dear speakers, for your expertise, for your approach to the IDP integration, and for your dedication for joining this panel and sharing these key messages that will lay the foundation of government policies in the future and contribute to the possibility of IDPs to meet their needs. Thank you.